Hello everyone, I thought I would do something a bit unusual today. It's not another library loot. I haven't gone crazy into the library again. Might have. Anyway, I thought today, I've been planning to, not planning to, I am doing. I'm going to be at Leeds Library next week, and I'm going to be talking about LGBT fiction and the Green Carnation Prize and all that sort of stuff. And so I've been kind of going through, as you can see by the terrible state of my shelves, shameful in fact. I've been going through all of my bookshelves and looking at what I think kind of, not necessarily the best LGBT novels ever, although in my opinion they are, but what ones kind of have meant a lot to me in the past, or what kind of I think have the best LGBT storylines or stuff like that. So I decided today, as it says up there, to do my top 10 LGBT books. I could include, I could have included about 30 because of all the Green Carnation reading, but I only allowed myself one Green Carnation novel, I think, in the mix. Yes. So it's not just like a plug of that, although it is a little bit. Anyway, so I thought I'd go through them and talk to you a little bit about them and why I love them. And the first one that I want to talk about is Pilcrow by Adam Mars Jones. And this book is genius because it tells kind of... The LGBT thing isn't the forefront of the novel because it's about a boy called John Cromer, and it's kind of tells from how, when he was born, he's born with a problem and he becomes disabled, and so he spends his life, his life in a wheelchair after he can't walk. So it's sort of about that, but then as it goes on, it's about kind of how his sexuality plays into that as well. So it's just a really, 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 really good book. And I love the fact it says here, he's the weakest hero in fiction unless he's one of the strongest. And it's true. And I'm really annoyed because I can't find my copy of Sedilla, which is the sequel, and then there's another one coming, anywhere. And I really, really wanted to reread it. So this is a book I would definitely recommend. Next up is one that's probably you all know really well, and that's the Song of Achilles. Because unlike with the Green Carnation, I thought my list I would do... The authors don't necessarily have to be LGBT themselves, as Madeline Miller isn't, but the themes can be. And this is very much an LGBT story in Roman classical times, as it's the story of Achilles and Patroclus, although I always say it wrong, Patroclus. You know who I mean, hopefully. And if you don't, you should read it and find out. It's just brilliant. It's one of the best love stories that I've read in years, and it's sort of got that feeling of an adventure story. And my mum was impressed because she's a classicist, and I naturally sort of alienated myself from classics because of that. And this has made me want to read the Iliad because it's kind of it takes part of the Iliad as its story. So there's that one. I won't ramble on too much. Next up is Augusten Burroughs' Running with Scissors. Now, if anybody hasn't read this, you have to read this. If you're like me, you absolutely loathe sort of those tragic life stories. There is actually a genre of books called tragic life stories. Augusten's book would be in that, technically, because he doesn't have a very easy life to start off with. His mum is addicted to antidepressants and is a little bit crazy, and he ends up kind of living with his foster family and then sort of going out with a paedophile, and it's all very, very kind of dark, but his narrative and everything is just so funny. I would highly recommend you read this. I've read the follow-up and I've got about 4 more to go, and I keep saying I'll read it, and then not doing, so I think really I should treat myself. Here is the winner of, not last year but the year before's Green Carnation Prize, which is Catherine Hall's The Proof of Love. Now, I only put one in because I could have put both the winners from last year in, frankly, and indeed the winner from the year before this one won. However, this one has got a real... I didn't know this was going to be Green Carnation long-listed before I fell in love with it. And it's just one of those stories. It's set in the heatwave in the 1970... I think it's 1976, in the Lake District, and a man called Spencer Little has kind of escaped Cambridge. He's a mathematician, and he's escaped Cambridge to kind of get away from something, we don't know what it is, and he moves out into the Lake District to become kind of work on the farm, and there he meets a little girl called Alice, and is just completely, they kind of start this really, really nice friendship, but as it goes on, you know that the novel's going to go somewhere really dark, and there's kind of these sinister elements to it, and I love this book, I love it. So please, read it. If you haven't read it, and I've told you enough on this blog to read it, just read it, go and get it, read it. And the next one is Christopher Isherwood's A Single Man, and this is, a lot of people know this because of the film, which had Colin Firth and was amazing, and was directed brilliantly by Tom Ford. And this is all about George Falconer, and it's a day in his life, and it's after his partner has died, and it's kind of the repercussions of that, and it's just kind of, I think it's a day, maybe it's a day. I always think it's a single day because of it being a single man. I might be wrong, my memory might be playing up, but at that length, I can reread it and find out, I think, because I want to talk about this on Tuesday next week. But yeah, it's a brilliant book. It's very, 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 very brief. It's very to the point, and Isherwood's writing is brilliant. He's known for all of his books kind of set in Germany and cabaret and everything, and I actually prefer it when he does these sort of more emotive, darker books. And I want to read Mr. Norris Changes Trains, because I've heard that's kind of in the same vein, not necessarily subject-wise, but kind of prose-wise as this one. Next up is my favourite book of last year. Just to make myself a bit uncomfortable. My favourite book of last year was Bethan Roberts' My Policeman, and I love lots of books last year, but this one really, really stuck with me. And this is kind of it's a really interesting tale of 1950s Brighton, and we always think now of Brighton as being this kind of really swinging place, especially for LGBT. It's kind of, I think it's the second capital for gay people in the whole of the UK or something like that. Anyway, it's in the 1950s, and it's about a policeman called Tom, and a girl called Marion falls completely in love with him, but at the same time so does a man called Patrick. And it's about how he sort of has a relationship with both, and the consequences of that, and the secrets that are kept, and all that sort of thing. And it's just a brilliant book, and we will be talking about this on the Readers Book Club next week. So if you want to find out more, do listen in, but do get it because it's a great book. It's that one. Now, this one, people might think I'm a bit bonkers for putting this in, because yes, the author was gay, but people might not see it. There's an LGBT theme, but it's In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, and I think it's one of the best books ever, full stop. It's kind of a horrendous book, but it's one of the best books ever. And also, as it goes on, I think, and people may completely disagree with me, but I think Truman Capote becomes a little bit obsessed with one of the killers who's involved in this non-fiction account of these killings and what happened to the two killers in Kansas in 1959. So I'm having to read the back because I can't remember everything because I haven't read this for ages, although my gran has just read it and loved it again, so that was good. But it's about Perry Smith and Dick Hancock, and I think, personally, Capote becomes quite obsessed with one of them. And I know there's a lot of that made of the films, and people said, oh, well, you've only spotted it because of the films. But there is just this kind of underlying thing. But either way, it's a brilliant book. And Truman Capote is an amazing writer, so definitely read this one. In fact, basically read all of them, because I keep saying read it. But just do, read them all. Next up is one that I really, really want to reread, but I don't think I've got time. But this is Skin Lane by Neil Bartlett, and this is brilliant. This is set in London, and I think it's in, let me check. Oh, it doesn't say what decade it is in, but in my head it's in the 60s. And it's about Mr. P, and he's working, he's like a 47-year-old. He's one of those people who nobody really knows very much about. You wouldn't he's got that kind of nerdiness about him, but you wouldn't really think very much of him. And he becomes utterly obsessed with a young man. And that's what I'm going to say, because I don't want to give too much of this one away. But this book, I think, had the Green Carnation Prize been going back when this was published, which isn't that long ago, then it would have won. That's my personal opinion. I can say that though, can't I? Because I'm one person out of 5 who would have judged it then. Anyway, rambling. But yeah, do read this. Lots of people read it when I did it for Not the TV Book Club with several other bloggers like Lynn of Dovegrey, Reader, and Kim of Reading Matters, and Kirsty of Other Stories, who needs to come back to blogging. And it just brilliant, and they all loved it, and it wasn't just me, so therefore it must be a book that everyone should love. Yes. This book probably means the most to me, and this is the penultimate in my list of 10. But this book probably means the most to me personally because I remember reading it when I was in my early teens. I think I made my mum buy it me from the library, and I think I knew what it was about, and I think she may have had a sneaking suspicion she knew what it was about. Anyway, this is Edmund White's A Boy's Own Story, and it's the first of his memoirs, or I don't know, I think they're fictional, like slightly fictionalised. You're never quite sure whether he's definitely describing him or whether he's describing other people. Anyway, this is just a superb book about the young kind of coming out phase in your life and how you deal with your sexuality and all of that sort of stuff. And it's interesting to read it back because, you know, back when this is set, it was really, really difficult, but it still is. And I think people forget that it's still really difficult now. So I think if there's anybody who's knows somebody who's going through it, or is sort of, there's somebody who's told them they're going through it but they don't want to tell anyone else, get them to read this, because it makes you feel like you're not alone, and that was what was really, really, really important. And finally, my favourite of all of the books, without question, is probably because this is a series of books that I can turn to anytime I need kind of to get away, or I just want to be picked up and whisked away. And that's because when I read it initially, again, probably back in my early teens, or sort of mid-teens maybe, early mid, anyway, I read Tales of the City by Armistead Maupin, and I think these books are genius. I just think they're witty, they're funny, they're realistic, at the same time they're kind of historical because of the portrayal of San Francisco in the 1960s and 70s, and the sort of swinging times that were happening. It tells of Mary Ann Singleton, who moves from the sticks to San Francisco, and this shock that she gets. It's not just an LGBT book, it's about literally every walk of life, and that is probably what I love about it most. I don't think any book I've read kind of captures people and all their different circumstances, or maybe it's the series that does it, I suppose. But when I was younger, I literally wanted to run away to Barbary Lane as fast as I could, and I'll be waffling on a lot about this on Friday on the blog, when hopefully you've all been reading along to read this, because I'm rereading it now and I want all of you to. So it's Monday today, you've still got 5 days to read it, and believe me, once you start picking up this bad boy, you won't be able to put it down. So do read it, because it is brilliant, and I promise you won't be let down. Oh, it matches my top, I just noticed. Nice. Anyway, this just read it, and read all the others that I mentioned as well. There's a list down there just in case, and I've done it in order of that I've shown them, which sort of shows my order of preference, although I love them all equally, except this one probably a bit more. Anyway, that's it for me for now. I've waffled on for nearly 12 minutes. Thank you very much for sparing that 12 minutes. And let me know what your favourite LGBT theme books are, because I would love to read more. Like, do you like Larry Kramer's Faggots, or do you like Pickles Queens, or what about The Well of Loneliness, which is an old classic, which I got today second-hand, which I shouldn't admit to the fact I've bought some new books, or any other books that I've missed that you think I should definitely read, or have read, or ones that I might have read and then passed on and so went on my shelves to go in my top 10. Sarah Waters I didn't put in, and I should have, but I've not read Fingersmith, so I think that's probably why. I think Fingersmith will be my favourite. Anyway, I'm waffling on again. So those are my sort of top LGBT books. If you're available next Tuesday, do come to Leeds, that would be lovely. I won't be as waffly as this, I promise. I'll probably be more nervous though. And I will speak to you all soon when I've got a library loot. Alright, bye!